The Walking Dead show skipped ahead 6 years, and holy crap are things different. Even though they didn't fast forward as much in the source material, the show still remixed a ton of iconic comic storylines. We're gonna break down all of them from The Walking Dead Season 9, Episode 6. I'm Woody Tondorf, and this is Panel to Screen. Since the end of All Out War, The Walking Dead has experienced 2 major time jumps which have collectively skipped us ahead 7.5 years. In the comics, they only moved ahead around 3 years following All Out War. The major difference is that Rick leaves before the big time jump while he's still around in the comics. Still, the time skips in both mediums allowed for a lot of exciting changes. Let's start with new Henry. Ezekiel and Carol's adopted son is now a teenager with all of the talkback and angst that goes with that, and he dreams of becoming a blacksmith at Hilltop. Now, where have we heard that before? Oh, right. Yeah, it's actually Carl's storyline in the comic. You see, Henry is a show-exclusive character who's going to get a lot of comic Carl storylines since, Carl's dead in the TV show. They're both around the same age and they both left their homes to learn blacksmithing at the Hilltop. One other small difference is that in the comics, Rick escorts Carl to Hilltop while in the show, Carol takes Henry. Next up is more of an Easter egg. Now, in this episode, Ezekiel mentions an upcoming fair between the communities.
But the fair's right around the corner.
Although that may not seem like a big deal, if you listen closely, you can hear comic fans screaming into their pillows. After the time jump in the comics, the communities notoriously throw a fair in Alexandria to celebrate their rebuilt civilizations. What could possibly go wrong? Let's just put it this way. Have you watched any prestige dramas where a lot of people come together in a celebration in a public way? How many times has that gone great? Moving on, let's talk about Magnus Group. In the show, Judith rescues a group of 5 strangers and convinces Rosita, Eugene, and others to bring them home with her. Mom, can we keep them?
Judith.
They're stripped of their weapons, Michonne coldly welcomes them in and asks the council to interrogate them. In the comics, Magna and her people are also rescued from walkers, but it's by Jesus, Rosita, and others. Unfortunately, Judith died in the comics back in the prison. It was dark. Read it if you want. Rick, who's still around and running Alexandria, welcomes Magnus Group a lot more warmly than Michonne in the show.
Can I ask you a question?
No.
Now on to the interview scene. In the show, a council made up of Father Gabriel, Aaron, Sadiq, and others question Magnus Group on how they survived. Michonne sniffs Magna out and gets her to admit she used to be a criminal. And she's holding a knife! The audacity of trying to defend herself in the post-apocalypse.
Screw you.
In the comics, that Michonne scene doesn't really happen, and the whole interview was actually split up into 2 sessions. Coming from issue 128, the first session is conducted by Rick himself, while the second session is an individual interview with Andrea. Her storylines are often remixed with Michonne's in the show. Now for the radio! In this episode, we briefly see Father Gabriel toil with a radio, which could be a nod to the infamous one in the comics that Eugene uses to accidentally make contact with a massive Ohio community called the Commonwealth. Although they never had to boost the signal in the comics, this could be a hint of a major storyline happening much sooner than the source material. Also, this Gabe-Rosita relationship is completely exclusive to the show, but boy is Comics Gabriel pissed. In the comics, Rosita's with Eugene but pregnant with Sadiq's baby. More on that steamy scene later. On to Negan. We lied when we said Henry was the new Carl. He's just half. Judith is also new Carl. This episode showed us that Judith has a secret friendship with Negan and they occasionally discuss math problems. I don't know who had that in their fan fiction, but there you go. This is similar to Negan and Carl's relationship in the comics. In issue 127, Carl visits Negan at his cell to vent about girls. Like the show, Negan enjoys the company. Back to Magna! In the show, Magna nearly breaks into Michonne's house to murder her? Jesus, Magna, you're a terrible guest. Of course, she doesn't go through with it because she sees Michonne has a baby. Record scratch sound effect. Magna backs off, probably from shock, and later returns to apologize to Michonne. But not to the baby, which is rude. In issues 131 to 132 of the comics, Magna actually does break in, but it's into Andrea's home, not Michonne's, and she brings the whole group. Andrea's actually pretty chill about it and answers questions about their way of life, and why Taco Tuesday is on a Wednesday, but Stir Friday is staying right where it is, thanks. Andrea eventually decides to let them stay in Alexandria, where in the comics, Michonne tells them to pack their shit and head to Hilltop. Also, that Roshone baby is very unique to the show. Now the moment we've all been waiting for, the Whisperers. In the show, Eugene and Rosita's radio mission goes terribly wrong. Eugene breaks his leg and the two are forced to hobble into a ditch to escape a horde of walkers. Wait, walkers can talk? Awesome! This really sprinkles the bacon bits on this suck salad of a day that Eugene and Rosita are having. This scene was one of the most iconic moments from the source material. In issue 130, Ken and Marco hide in a ditch, and as the walkers pass by, they also hear them whispering. It's the first time in both mediums that the Whisperers are shown, and we won't spoil too much about this group, but just know this is very bad news for our heroes. As long as Jesus is alive, it'll be okay. And that wraps up all the comic references in episode 906. As much as the show borrowed from the comics, there were a lot of scenes that were unique to the episode. The Savior run-in, Michonne's kid, Anything involving Henry, Carol, Daryl, or Judith were either completely show exclusive or remixed from other parts of the comics. Tune in next week for mid-season finale comparisons. We're gonna have some thoughts. Anyways, I'm Woody Tondorf. I'll see you guys in the comments. You have thoughts, subscribe, hit the bell, enjoy it. We're gonna do more of these. Bye!